every time that the countdown music. Welcome to the stream, everybody.
Hello.
Where tell us where you're watching from, and I'm also, Sarah and I are both also very curious to hear what you're working on. Sarah and I are going to share what we've been working on so far this week, but first, some introductions, both of the two of us, as well as what we're doing here on this story club, if it's your first time here. Sarah, do you want to tell us who you are?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Sarah Ray Werner. I am a writer, podcaster, producer, speaker, reader, all sorts of different things. I write fictional podcasts, so audio dramas. The first one I produced was called Girl in Space, and you can listen to it. Otherwise, I think that's me in a nutshell. How about you?
Amazing. Welcome. Thank you, Sarah, for that. I'm Asa Merritt. I wrote an Audible original. It's also a fictional podcast called Six Sermons, starring Stephanie Hsu. Now I'm writing fiction. And that brings us to this present moment, which is to say, to write good fiction, you need to read good fiction. Welcome to Sci Fi Story Club, where we are working our way week by week, story by story, through this collection of short stories. This is the big book of science fiction, edited by Anne and Jeff Vandermeer. We are here every Wednesday. On Thursdays, we have a similar horror story club where we're working our way through a different anthology. And on Fridays, we actually write. Sarah and I are both writers. So on Friday, we identify publications, submission opportunities for each other, for everyone, and kind of on Fridays, put in a work session with the hopes of sending stuff out to publication. Welcome. Additionally, there is a Discord server for these sort of 3 weekly streams where we're jamming about writing opportunities and extra conversation around these various stories. It's very exciting. One of us will throw that link here in the comments. I guess we have to throw it. Maybe all 3 of us have to put it in our respective things for it to show up, I think.
I think so. I just put it to my YouTube and my Twitch, so.
Cool. Well, I'll put it in mine as momentarily, depending on what channel you're coming in on. So, okay, we're going to talk about this story, but quick hit, Sarah, how's your writing week going?
You know, it's been a rough writing week, and I'm just going to be open and honest about that. I had so many plans this week well, as you know, I write by hand, and I had been doing 3 to 4 handwritten pages a day, and that has not happened this week. I sat down on Monday and told myself, well, I'm going to do some journaling. Oh, hey, Lore Huntress. And did some journaling. And then yesterday I said, I'm still not feeling it. So I drew a diagram just to kind of kill time. You can see there's a little stick person in the middle.
Love me a good diagram.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. It was a good procrastination tool, and maybe it helped me get some ideas for the story, but it was not writing. So this morning, I had a Zoom call first thing, and then I had all, sorts of stuff going on. I've not gotten to write today, but there is still time today.
There is. And hopefully,
how about you, Asa?
Yeah, hopefully the story is inspiration. My writing week has been similarly, expectations have not been met.
Same.
I had I'm trying to write for 8 hours this week was like the big vision. So far that hasn't happened, but I did have actually a kind of bit of a reset yesterday where I overheard a piece of advice from Tananarive Due, that fiction writer that we always talk about here a lot, the Afrofuturist. And she really said, hey, listen, I write for myself. I'm not writing for anybody else. And that was kind of a nice, okay. It kind of like pierced a little bit of a pressure bubble that was happening. So I do feel empowered sitting down the rest of the week, kind of like, this is for me. This is for me. At the end of the day, if I write a story that I love, then it's going to be great. So today we're talking about, and I want to hit these comments after this. Today we're talking about The Triumph of Mechanics by Karl Hans Strobel. The headline I came up for my YouTube video today was Before Terminator, the Rabbits Came. This story, I'm so excited to talk about. Just brief context. Sarah's going to give the lowdown. I'm going to hit these comments, but just the quickest of hits is that 1 billion rabbits assault this town. 1905 story, early iteration of machines taking over. Lore Huntress is here. Lore says, hi all, Vermont, originally from Detroit, multiple works in progress, but one is a body horror short story about tariffs.
Oh,
I genuinely am excited to read that. Rune, welcome. Hello from Washington State.
beautiful.
Yes. All right. All right. So, Sarah, let's get into this story. What's
Yeah.
the cliff notes here? What is this story?
The cliff notes are basically, I don't know if you've ever seen Night of the Lepus.
I haven't.
It's a B movie. It's a horror movie from the 1970s with that one guy from the original Star Trek series. Anyway, rabbits overrun a town. This is similar. Basically, this is a sort of, there's like this Willy Wonka chocolate factory of like toys. And it takes place, I want to say it takes place in Germany or Austria. And I don't know if it explicitly says, but this toy company that comes up with these magical, amazing toys of the future, they hire an American. And this American that they hire comes up with a cool new proprietary way to manufacture these little automated rabbits. And the rabbits are adorable. Everybody wants one. And so he's like, hey, you know what? If you want me to stay here and work here, I want a bigger office. I want all this stuff. And the two heads of the company are like, no. And he's like, okay, bye. And basically, what happens is, and his name is Hopkins, which I think is hilarious because bunnies. And basically, it's like a Pied Piper story. He essentially ransoms the town and sends in his automated bunnies, and they just start annoying people at first. And it's like funny and easy to laugh at because there's 2 or 3. But then he literally sends in a billion tiny, adorable, but also invasive and annoying bunny robots. And I think I'll pause my synopsis there because I think we're going to talk a little bit about what happens in the end. But yeah, Asa, you talked about this story broke science fiction.
Yes. Right. That was my tentative. That was my tentative headline.
Okay.
I changed it last minute to that
Okay.
Terminator situation.
Oh, that's also very good. But there's only one Terminator.
It definitely broke this town. It definitely broke this town. And from a reader's point of view, it kind of broke me open in the best way.
Okay.
This morning. Yeah, Kafka says that literature should be the axe that breaks the frozen river of ice within us, which I don't know if I quite give us this, but as a reader, it's been a rough few days in my life, and just the levity of this story, the sort of feeling of farce, just entering into like an imagination, a mind, a worldview that was so light and playful and joyful was a huge kind of like breath of fresh air. And just a reminder of how books can transport us not just to other worlds, but like into other psychic spaces. And this was a psychic space that anything was possible and things turned quickly. It reminded me a lot of improv, a really good improv.
I like that analogy.
Yeah. So let me lay this out there for you. So, I was never on a proper troupe, but there was a time where I like did an improv class or 2 or whatever. And, the idea is that you set a rule and then you pursue it to its most illogical, absurd, fun, funny, festive end. And in this story, the setup is, okay, I'm going to overrun this town with 1 billion rabbits. And the story really felt like a good improv sketch in that it unfolds it piece by piece by piece by piece by piece about like, okay, let's take that premise and let's see what happens. And we don't go straight to 1 billion. It starts with a couple. They start to be cute. Then they start to be overwhelming. Then they start to be the cause of ire and wrath and then terror. And just the piece by piece-ness of all that, I thought was so kind of wonderfully simple, this basic premise, and just seeing where it could take us. Takashi's in the mix. Also, if you are here and read the story or are otherwise inspired, please send us your thoughts. We will put them up here on the screen, as many as possible, and engage with them. We're grateful for everyone in the story club. Takashi, for me was the struggle between the ideal artificial versus the real because of the end. Okay, and we will get to that.
And even before we get to the end, and let me know if I'm cutting you off, but Takashi, I think that's such a good point and Asa, you even spoke about this a little bit with, things in life aren't going great now, but the story just was light and it lifted me up. And then we have a lot of dichotomies happening here. There's the artificial and the real. There's Germans and Americans, which I think is significant in this story. And there's also this sense of, and I don't know if how deep we want to get into this, but it is such a lighthearted story. It was also written by a Nazi officer, which is there's a lot going on here with different tensions and different things that are being opposed, even the story itself being in opposition a little bit to sort of the sort of person who wrote it. So yes. JC Henry, hey.
JC, welcome. We're so glad to have you. That's great. That's interesting. The sort of whole kind of separating the art from the artist.
Yes.
I don't have anything to say that hasn't been said. I see sort of all elements of that, but I guess to kind of play armchair analyst, because that's what we're here for, I do think that there is this sense of ideology in this story and just futurism and sci-fi in general being this very idea forward kind of worldview, this idea that a worldview can save us and advance us. And similarly, we see that kind of thing in mass movements of all stripes, right?
Yeah. Oh, so absolutely.
There is a kind of an interesting intersection there. That's kind of what I thought about that.
I think that's that's a good and beautiful way to put it.
Narrative vault in the mix. I thought it was a fun little story. I was surprised that an American was the inventor. Not surprising since Edison, Ford, and Tesla moving America forward. Mm-hmm. Okay, right. So it's occupying this kind of tradition of an American innovator, certainly around early 20th century. I agree with that. Yeah. For you, Sarah, what's the significance of this American in Germany or Austria?
Yeah, well, and I wanted to ask your thoughts on that as well. I'm not super politically savvy. I do know things were warming up for World War I. And there is definitely a tension here. Every time, well, not every time, Hopkins, the American, is referred to specifically as the American several times. It's really hammered home that he is a foreigner. And that seems to be important for the story in a way that maybe I don't understand. And Narrative Vault, I think that you've maybe hit upon something there. There's maybe some tension there between countries about who's winning the technology race and what that looks like and who's holding who hostage. I feel like there's probably some very real political boilings underneath that are going on. Again, I'm not politically savvy enough to know what those are. And Asa, I don't know if you had any particular insights.
I kind of don't care. I guess it's where, maybe something was happening. I mean, look, I'm sure there is a good English paper, or call it term paper, to be written about that, the particulars of the geopolitics. But I do think that it's interesting that this inventor was an outsider. Yes. In that and it kind of goes along with this bigger ideas of machines taking over. This was a foreigner, right? This was a foreigner coming in, disrupting the order of things, disrupting the peace. And so I do think it's significant. And I like that choice. I guess from the writing perspective, I like the idea of accentuating the point of we're going to create a world where these monsters and machines come over, and it is going to come from an outsider in a way that didn't feel sort of exoticizing or problematic. It felt organic to the time in the world. Right.
Yeah. It wasn't offensive or anything. And these are some good points coming in.
I think, says Lore Huntress, I think it was because the American was presented as brass, unconservative in action and desire, and pushing too fast in industry. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's I think that's on brand.
I think so.
For America and American innovators, pushing things out too hard, too fast, not really thinking about the consequences. And that's exactly what happened here. He is presented as a it was interesting. I found myself like liking the American a lot because it's like
Mm-hmm.
the maverick genius, like, oh, I told you so. The guy like basically destroyed an entire community with these rabbits. So I had the kind of cool experience afterwards of reevaluating my initial affection for this character. Nah,
Because you
affection's
read
a little
stories
strong.
twice, right? You
I
make a
try
point.
every
Yeah.
time, yeah, like at least engage with them twice. Oh, hello.
I'm sorry about that.
Hello,
Inappropriate
balloons.
balloons.
Oh, what's happening?
It's
Uh,
because it saw me do the number 2 with my fingers, and I guess it thought it was a peace sign, which I guess brings on the digital balloon. So thank you, AI, for proving the story's point here.
Takashi, this story was made during the second industrial revolution. I'm not
Mm.
surprised about the tensions that this could unfold. Agreed,
Yes.
agreed, agreed.
Yes.
Um, yeah, that was a wild scene. I agree, Lord Huntress. Okay, so look, I'm not trying to like veto any historical take on it. Just that was my experience. It's like, for me, what sings about this story is the confidence of the absurdism,
Mm.
committing,
Mm.
which is a similar idea of improv. You commit. Like if
Mm.
you're a monkey, then you go for it and you like trust that decision on stage.
Yeah.
And the conceit of this story, I'm going to inundate a town with 1 billion rabbits, the sort of commitment to that and the detail to which with that imaginative premise was pursued was inspiring to me.
I also, just on that point, real quick, there's different literary theories about how you write and read and like where the story is actually coming from and what point of view you're taking as the reader with the story. And there is historical point of view. So there's people who read history and stories and they say, or authorial intent or social the social zeitgeist at the time. But I like that you're reading this story for yourself from a very different perspective. And that is the perspective of today, why does this story still work? And I think you're absolutely nailing like why it works today. The absurdism is still there. It just and again, these are cyclical themes that we're dealing with here. Like, this was during a time when they're looking at mechanics. We're looking at like what is AI doing to our job landscape, and not even just that. It's yeah, there's just a lot going on here. I'll let you continue. Sorry.
Well, those are kind of, I have other hits. I'm wondering for you, what were some of your favorite parts of the story? What for you as a writer, what kind of can you grab from this? What were some parts that resonated for you?
Yeah, I think I had a light bulb moment, which is always fun for me. At the top of page 19, when the firm was forced to increase its means of production to fabricate legions of small animals. That was really the first time I started thinking that this was an analogy, an analogous story to the Pied Piper of Hamelin, which I believe is also a German story about a foreigner who comes in, overruns the town with rats, kidnaps all the children, and does something to them. So it's a little darker. Like the fable's actually a little darker than this manages to be because there's, as far as we know, no children are kidnapped and nobody dies.
Right, as far as we know, yes,
Yeah.
people, there's rabbits interrupting sexy time. There's rabbits everywhere and
Yeah.
anywhere, and too many of them. But you're right. There's no, and yeah, I think that's like a tonal situation that this is farce. It's
Yeah.
not. It's never actually scary, despite the destruction.
Yeah. I like that too. And it's set up like classic horror almost, in that the quote unquote bad guys, who are the Germans in this case, the quote unquote bad guys, quote unquote, deserve what they got. It shows several times Hopkins' arguments and their like refusal to give in. And then we switch to the perspective of the mayor, and it shows Hopkins like, why can't I get my factory permit? And the mayor's like, oh, you're so silly. Ha ha ha. Funny. And then he goes home and he's like, oh, look at, there's a little toy rabbit in my yard. Ha, how funny. And it's like, dude, believe him. Like, why are, so in a way, the rest of the town, maybe not so much, but like the leaders, the people in positions of power in this story. So the toy makers and the mayor, they get what they deserve because they didn't listen to the threats. They didn't take these threats seriously that Hopkins was making to cover their town in literally a billion rabbits. And one more thing is what also got me was he makes a point of the problem was you didn't understand what the word billion meant. And
I
like,
love that. I
oh,
underlined that as well.
and that is something we are still struggling with today. I can't fathom $1 billion. Like, it's just so interesting how so much of this does feel weirdly relevant to this moment.
Yeah. Yeah. Same. Yeah. I just from a kind of a storytelling or structure point of view, I just the basic setup of a warning not followed. This shows up in, like, I don't know if you ever ran across that guy, Vladimir Prop. Have you heard of him?
No,
He was this
no.
like scholar who was, I want to say, Russian. Certainly, like the focus of his study was Russian folktales, and he went through and kind of wrote, like, pulled out all these devices that we always see in these folktales, and that was a classic one of just like a warning not followed. And I just, it's in theme with these other stories. Just the value of simplicity, the value of a simple narrative setup, again, coming home for me in a big way.
Yeah.
That was like a takeaway. It's like, yeah, if you make a wild warning, if you don't do what I say, I will unleash a billion bunnies, and that warning is not followed, you have a story.
Yep.
And this really proved it.
Yeah.
Takashi, it felt like that episode from The Simpsons when Bart brought a toad to Australia and the entire colony was overrun by them. Okay, I read a New Yorker article about this. I don't know about this this episode though. I'm trying to connect the dots, but yeah, that sounds about right.
Oh.
I mean, yeah, an entire area overrun,
Like a plague. Yeah,
like a plague. Now, another reference reminds me of Star Trek Tribbles. Do you know that reference?
I do. They're these like little puffballs that like, and they're all over the ship and they're like eating the wires, but they're so cute. That's the thing. It's like, or if you've seen Futurama, it's like poplars kind of.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So they're these little puffballs and they're just adorable. And it's the crew just throwing little stuffed animals at the actors, and it's delightful.
Lore Huntress.
Yes, lore. Okay, yes.
I wondered if there was more meaning between the red ink spilled between the mayor and the manufacturer. Also, sorry, meant brash, not brass earlier. Great. No problem.
Brassy,
yeah,
and brash.
I was with you there.
Yeah.
Okay, Sarah, what you perked up? What's up with this?
I perked up because I found myself writing a lot of like weird little this was such a well-paced, wonderfully told story, but he also is just very good for such an entertaining story. It was very interesting to see so much symbolism used in here. And gosh, is this before or after the Schiller celebration?
Before, I think.
Yes, here we go. Vortitail was unable to answer as he found himself inundated by the red ink a rabbit had just spilled. His elegant black trousers were ruined. The mayor laughed convulsively. And then they talk a little bit more. And as Vortitail, who's one of the toy manufacturers, and the mayor are continuing, it says, ignoring the red tide that continued to spill out between them, he whispered, but I'm thinking of something even more terrible. And this is right when they're talking about the fact that the rabbits are multiplying, like, by themselves. It's not that Hopkins is like secretly making them and like throwing them into people's lawns. The rabbits are multiplying. But I circled that too, and like red tide felt like it reminded me of like Red Dawn or like something. I felt like it should have significance other than just like, bad blood between us. But he really makes it a point. And also it just really bothered me. I don't know if anybody else saw this, but if you spill red ink on your black pants, I don't think you're going to be able to tell, and the pants aren't going to be ruined. Okay. But that just bothered me.
Also, I was like, what is up with this? He's like, ruined the black pants. And it's like,
Like white
Yeah, it's
pants,
so kind. Yeah, well,
maybe.
yeah. Laura,
Well,
did you
is
know?
that part of what's going on here? Like, is a point being made that I'm not getting? Like, oh, it wouldn't ruin your pants because
Yes, right. Maybe there's this like perception that all is lost, but it's all of the moment.
yeah,
Laura, did you have a theory? Oh, exactly, Sarah. Okay, right on. Okay, so the antennae are grabbing similar things
yes,
here.
yes. Oh, I
Um,
love it though. There's just so many little things like that in here. It's fantastic.
If you're just joining the stream or you missed us at the beginning, this is Sci Fi Story Club. We talk about science fiction short stories every Wednesday at this time, week by week, working our way as writers and readers through this anthology. We're so glad you're here. Okay, so the ending. Do we talk about the ending? Do we talk about the ending? I think I have some other thoughts, but like, let's.
Yeah.
Well, actually, wait. Before we get to the ending, I did
Okay.
want to point to. I think that was a really keen observation that the proliferation of the rabbits did seem to happen independent of Dude Hopkins, the
Yeah,
inventor.
yeah.
Is that how you read it?
Yes,
That
that's exactly how I read it. He warned them that there would be billions, but he didn't specify how the billions would happen. And because he didn't have a factory, maybe they poo-pooed it initially because like, oh, how are you going to make these billions and billions? So,
right.
I think he engineered them this way and just left it a fun surprise for them to find out.
Right. And yeah, that does speak to this kind of like the tradition of this kind of story of
Mm.
a human made invention getting out of hand. Because another thing is like he says he's going to make it all better, but like, that doesn't, we don't see it happen. Like
No.
he's like, don't worry, everybody, I'm going to get rid of the rabbits. But like we don't see that happen. And we already have we saw a town destroyed. So that kind of the imaginative event we're left with is, especially I think to a contemporary imagination with the proliferation of kind of contagion narratives and our recent pandemic, we have the capacity to kind of just quickly see what this looks like. We just saw one town destroyed and like we can see where this is going if unchecked. And that's a cool thing this story does. It leaves us with more story that is untold. And it has a cool ending.
It does.
Tell us about the ending.
Oh my gosh. So the ending surprised me, which, this is 120-year-old story, and it like blew my mind. And like that was really exciting. So basically what happens is the whole town gets together and they're like, what do we do? What do we do? And the crowd is gathered around. Hopkins says he takes the stage. Oh, this is at the Schiller. Sorry, at the Schiller. I don't know if there's any significance to it being Schiller. I didn't actually know who that was.
He's like the national poet of Germany or something.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
I don't know. Just like I feel like a beloved like public figure of the arts.
Yeah.
I think.
So Hopkins gets on stage and he tips his top hat in a very like Willy Wonka sort of way. And he's like, here's the moral of the story. This all could have been avoided if you would have just listened to me and respected my wishes. And, I didn't want this to happen, but it did. And he says, so far, you've seen an innocuous species of rabbit, but tomorrow at midday, you'll encounter a new variety, the rabbit that can eat. And dread just floods the assembly. And he just he holds up this bunny and he just feeds it. I think it's a piece of grass. And everybody is like, okay, stop. We need to give this guy what he wants because we can't do this. And then afterwards, after he gets permission to build his own factory, the mayor asks, how did you invent a rabbit that can eat?
Yeah. And what
Can I just read you
Yes,
this?
yeah,
It's
yeah.
so good. It's so effective. He says, how is this possible? Hopkins gave a smile that was more bitter than usual and tipped his impeccable top hat. Well, that one, he said, that rabbit, Mayor, the one I showed you was quite exceptionally a real living rabbit.
Right. Yeah. So why is that a brain burst for you?
So it was a brain burst for me because I didn't expect it. I thought he had like the story logically makes you think that like, oh, they create these bunnies and they create reproducing bunnies. Yeah, then of course he's going to create bunnies that eat. And because you see him more as like a villain than a trickster. And I think that that's kind of more what he is in this instance. It also made me go back and question the title of the story, which is The Triumph of Mechanics, when really he gets his triumph with an organic creature, a non-mechanical, like organic eating, breathing bunny rabbit. Like, so is the triumph of mechanics? Am I misreading it? I'm not sure. Yes, Takashi, with trickery, the American got what he wanted. He got his factory. He got his, I mean, and at what cost? Oh,
Well, and yeah, because just literally, I think it's possible that it was a bluff, that he actually does not have the capacity to create a bunny that can eat.
he cannot. No.
Yeah,
No.
and he didn't invent it. He shows up with a real rabbit, dupes everyone into thinking he's capable of inventing one. That's interesting. Lore has a thought here. Lore Huntress says, was he saying that nature is more mysterious and complex than anything humankind could create? Maybe
so. Yeah. Because, Asa, what would you say is the triumph of mechanics here? Like, why would you call this, like, why would you title this story that in particular?
That's a fun question. I think
and by that do you mean like, oh my gosh, I wasn't ready for this?
think one kind of cool answer to that could be that the mechanics triumph over like the bureaucracy and corruption and pettiness of humanity, right?
The machinations.
Like the setup is like, we have these guys who create this business that they get beat, if you can't beat them, like they get outdone by another inventor, and then they go to the mayor and they're like, you can't let this guy survive, call in the favors. He comes to the office and he's like, tries to do the iconic bureaucratic runaround of like, well, have you talked to the Department of Engineering? He's like, yeah, they told me to call the police. And well, you talked to the police. I did call the police. And essentially it's just all of the sort of BS essentially of this small town community, of the entrenched interests, the non-foreigners, trying to prevent change, trying to prevent this guy from succeeding. And all of that is defeated by his mechanical invention. So in that way, it does feel very American in this way of like, okay, well, the product, if you have a successful enough product, we can erode any extant custom or culture or institution. I think that's like a fun reading. Yeah. But again, like, I don't know. I'm not the read. That's a cool reading. But I mean, again, like I'm here for that parody of that small town bureaucracy. It felt very Russian to me. Like The Overcoat by Gogol, it feels right out of like Kafka bureaucracy land as well. I guess like Dickens maybe writes stories about this. Might be the English language, but just this, like, I liked that dip into like small town, like nonsense and like a corrupt mayor. Just like, I don't know, this was zany, and I haven't had zany stories in my life for a long time. That's happening in these story clubs. So great comments. Lore Huntress, I believe it has to do more with the implications on using technology and how far we can go. Yes.
I appreciate that. So like, it was the organic rabbit that allowed the mechanics to triumph. I like that. I like that.
Greed. Sounds like corporate America today gets what it's want. Indeed. Takashi agrees. Lore, yes, that we have to proceed with caution, very timely. And yeah, this is very much, obviously this is like recurred. At the beginning of this, I brought up like Terminator. The idea of machines taking over has activated folks' imagination for a long time. I do think we are seeing this acutely with AI.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't have any takes there that haven't been taked.
Yeah, I love the Terminator point, because weirdly, or maybe this is, just because that's how the text is written, I thought of the Terminator twice during the story. One in which when the mayor is having his dream about the rabbits, it says, written in letters that reached the sky, the terrible word indestructible loomed in the midst of a crowd of rabbits. And it just was like, and they have red eyes. And the glowing red eyes, knowing that they're indestructible, boy, did that raise it raised a Terminator flag to me. And then there was also, then on page 22, it says these little white beasties hopped among the dishes on the tables. They could be destroyed only with axes and fire.
Yes, yes. I have an LOL. I have an LOL.
Yes. I made a big exclamation point next to it. Axes and fire. It's like, because they're like hopping in the dishes of the food, and then in the next sentence we're talking about like axes and fire, and it's just that quick wit, like that
Yes.
humor and those quick turns, those unexpected turns that just really worked for me.
Yes, yes. It's deadpan. It's deadpan.
Yes,
you know?
yes.
Just the concision of that axe and fire. I really thought that was great too. And it just, again, like, this is in translation, so you got to wonder what kind of singing is happening that we're missing. Let's see. A twist, mirth. I wrote the word mirth down.
Ooh.
What else? Anything else in here that is in the mix? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, and then we've got a couple of comments coming in as
great.
well.
Asa talked about moral dilemma a couple weeks ago. Great. We love fiction that makes us morally dilemmed. Takashi, it's like an exorcism.
Ooh.
Who's getting it?
The demon bunnies coming in, like the demon bunnies with their red eyes, getting into the dreams of the mayor, and like, are you talking like he's like possessed with the idea and fear of these bunnies, Takashi? If I'm understanding you correctly.
Yeah. While he's answering that, what were you about to dive into?
I was going to dive into. So initially, when we started this conversation, I made the connection between this story and the Pied Piper of Hamlet, and I said that no children were hurt in this story. That in Switzerland, in a region nearby. Is that right? Okay, good. We've got confirmation from Takashi that a woman gave birth to a stillborn child. The terror experienced by the mother had caused the premature birth, and the child had on its face a mark in the shape of a rabbit. And it's clearly presented in this story that this is people's imaginations running away with them, or at least that's what I took away. But is that kind of how you also saw that?
Yeah, and actually, I'm really glad you brought that up. That was by far, I think, the most horrifying moment of this.
Me too.
And it was cool because it was almost like Strobel was like, hey, y'all, I know this is fun. I know we're having a good time here. In case you're not really seeing everything, this is a horror story.
Yeah.
So the part that Sarah's referencing, we have a stillborn child, tragedy of tragedies, and this is a consequence. This is a consequence, and it's dashed in there. And I liked how that's where it happened versus like, this is the consequence that could have happened at the end. It's just kind of like dropped in. And so where it's in there, it's in the mix, it's in us as we continue to proceed through this fun story.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad you brought that up.
It's raising the stakes in a way that doesn't necessarily threaten most people, but just the thought that it is this dire for some people. Yeah, absolutely.
Takashi,
yes.
You want to take some turns reading these, Sarah? What does Takashi have to say?
Sure. Takashi says, looking back at the stories we've read so far, it fascinates me how humanity with technological advances can face their inevitable doom. Oh my gosh. I would love to hear more about this. I mean, Terminator, yeah. Oh gosh, our inevitable doom. I don't know. Do you think we're inevitably doomed? That's such a good question, and it's one that's raised by science fiction. And the question in a lot of science fiction is not whether we will die or whether we will cease to exist. It's, will we bring it upon ourselves? Like, that's a huge question in sci-fi. And so it's maybe not even just how humanity with technological advances faces their doom, but are we creating it, and to what degree are we like harming ourselves and our society with these technological advances?
Yeah, I think this is a really cool question. And this is where I do think historical context
Ooh.
becomes at least more interesting for me, at least because, this does seem, I didn't feel like Carl von Strebel thought the world is coming to an end. Whereas in other science fiction and horror, of course, on this series, you can feel the weight and the fear. It didn't feel like that here. This was in 1907. We're not at the height of nuclear brinkmanship. We're not on the cusp of a climate emergency where cities are already, it did feel different. I like this question, and I want to continue exploring this question throughout the series.
Mm-hmm.
If you're coming onto the stream, this is Sci Fi Story Club. Welcome to the mix. Talking about the end of the world. We're here every week, folks. Lore says there seems to be a bit of folk horror mixed in, even though they're mechanical. I love this thought. I love this thought. Sarah, what do you make of that?
Oh, that just brings me right back to the Pied Piper. Folk horror, these are mechanical rabbits, but it's no different than, if you look at any other story about a plague being drawn on a town, the only difference here is that they're mechanical. And the message becomes different because we know it's mechanical, but then does it ? Because again, the trigger bunny at the end that changes everyone's minds is organic. And so I don't know. I think that that's a really good observation. And Laura, I guess, was there a specific folk story that you thought of for that? I thought of the biblical plagues. I also thought of, because I read these out of order, the story that we're reading for tomorrow, the Ash Tree, yes, by M.R. James. And I was just imagining, I won't spoil anything, but I was imagining the bunnies in that story.
Okay, I
Not
haven't
gonna
read
lie.
it yet.
Oh.
If there's anything that makes me excited to pick that story up, do you want to?
I'm insane. You're gonna think I'm insane.
I love that. Do you want to just briefly introduce the what we're reading for the Horror Story Club?
Yeah. So hey everyone, we do Science Fiction Story Club on Wednesday. We do Horror Story Club on Thursday. I keep wanting to say and on Wednesdays we wear pink, but I don't know if everyone would appreciate that reference. So tomorrow at this exact same time on these exact YouTube/Twitch channels, we are reading M.R. James's The Ash Tree. And it is also a little lighthearted. I know it's about witch trials, but it's also it's told through 3 different narrators who's putting together what he can from news clippings and stuff. So very interesting point of view. But yeah, I'm excited that you're going to read it. M.R. James is widely known as this progenitor of modern ghost stories. And I really think this is masterfully done. Yes. Thank you, Takashi. Insanity is just another synonym for genius. Yes.
Love that.
Yes, we're all insane here.
If you're vibing here on these, we do have a Discord. I'm sharing it again, where we talk about all this stuff more. Okay, this is amazing. The one other kind of puzzle that I was trying to unpuzzle for myself, Laura, we're going to get to this comment. Thank you for that. Is the length with which it takes to get into this central conceit.
I thought the same thing.
Yes, and I'm just kind of thinking, I kind of engage with stories and text and literature more or less thinking that if I don't get it, it's on me. This is a 120-year-old story. A very incredible writer sort of selected this. So I proceed with until a certain point that okay, my instinct would have been to get there sooner. Why not? I'm missing something. Maybe that's not true, but let's just put that out there to you, to the table. Why does it take a little time? What's happening up until the introduction of the billion bunny problem?
Yeah.
Why does it take so long to get there?
It does take a long time. And I think, Asa, you're going to really love the intro to tomorrow's horror story, where the author spends the first paragraph talking about the kind of house he wished he lived in. regardless. I think it takes a while because, and this might not be the right answer. This is just something I'm throwing out there. This is my opinion, is just what we look for in stories, even though stories can be consistently good from different time periods. I just think what we value in storytelling has changed a little bit. And I think that, I mean, in maybe even novels more than the short fiction, but I've noticed that older short fiction too, the short fiction that I've read, it takes its time to build up these characters. It takes its time to establish that, like, here's why these toy rabbits are important. Okay, here's why the factory making these rabbits is important. Here's the two guys who run the factory. Okay, now, and I think a little bit of that is just how we do pacing now.
Yeah, just
If you try to sell a literary novel that doesn't start with the hero running away from something, it's like, why am I reading this? I need it now. I need it now. Even like, look at commercials. They used to, like, I drink Horton's coffee because I like life. And today it's like Folgers or die.
right.
And like, our attention spans have changed and what we value in stories has changed. I could talk about this all day, but I was just thinking about, like, TikToks, and like, we tell a story in 15 seconds or less now, And so anyway, I'll get off that horse, but
Yeah. Yeah. Laura, I'm going to hit up your insane theory. Narrative Vault seems to agree. Changes in convention, attention span, commercial pressure.
Yes, commercial
This is
pressure.
interesting. Takashi, I can't remember the name for it, but there's a theory that all intelligent species on various planets have all accidentally destroyed themselves once they get past a specific growth point. Great. So we're just following in the grand tradition of all universes.
Like Jack McDevitt's, I'm not going to remember what they're called, but it's about archaeologists in the future who are looking at, like, past civilizations on other planets. I'm also trying to think of, like, who had the levels of this isn't the same thing as the levels of civilization, because there's like level 1 civilization, level 2, level 3, level 4, and I think we're a level 1 or 2. But
this is not familiar to me. That sounds interesting.
Oh, JC Henry says technology destroyed our attention span. That's the real triumph of mechanics right there.
Right.
So
bunnies were the least of our problems. Takashi has a theory about the slow start. Perhaps it has to do with how to build atmosphere in a fantasy sci-fi story. I think that's what you're talking about, right, Takashi? The slow start. Yeah, I think so too. There's real world building that's happening. And the world in this case, I think, does go back to this, like, small town vibes. There's a mayor. I think it's telling that there's 2 people that run this business. And yeah, all that setup did pay off.
It did. It did. And I think, honestly, as literature has grown and people have become more literate, even in the last 100 years, even like people like in America have become even more literate. There's been a certain pattern, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but we rely on coded things, I think, a little bit more. So this story is building its atmosphere, it's building its setting from scratch. Whereas today we can just say it was a dark, stormy night, or I'm going to tell you a horror story, and we have these templates that exist already.
Great
so
point.
we don't. I haven't seen as many. It's like they keep making Spider-Man movies, and it's like, okay, we don't have to have every Spider-Man movie does not have to show Uncle Ben dying. Like, we've seen that. Get into something new, right?
Great point.
I'm done with Uncle Ben. Like, fine, he died. Please move on. Not in a mean way, but like, storytelling wise. And I think that we've established, especially in genre fiction, we've established these patterns that, like, if you read enough science fiction or if you read enough horror, you're going to know, like, yeah, it's a dark and stormy night.
Yeah.
Obviously. Yeah. And so I think that's maybe why these take a little bit longer, because this was a little more new.
I love that. Yeah. Just thinking about shorthand conventions, this is a little in the weeds, but there was a recent, like, Soderbergh thriller that I read this, like, really interesting analysis of it, where it's like 2 people in a boardroom, kind of like an interrogation. And it starts at what's typically the 3rd shot in this sequence of, like, medium shot, 2 people at the interrogation table, then like a tight on one of these faces, and it went to what is now which typically the third shot in that sequence. And it's like, yeah, because we're there already. We know you take us the third shot. You like, how late can we start into the scene? Like, I know where we are because of that third shot.
Oh,
Takashi says, and for a short story to build a world and set it up in just a few pages, it's amazing. Agreed. Yeah, I think this project, these story clubs, definitely continue to make me fall more in love with the short story as an art form. You know, surprise, surprise.
It's a good thing.
That's what I have to say about this story. I think. Is there anything else that you want to throw in, Sarah?
I think that we covered most of what I wanted to talk about. Yeah, I think that, I mean, you can go through, I think I will go through and reread this because I want to see how they portray Hopkins a second time. I'd like to see if he's portrayed as a trickster instead of a foreigner villain coming in. And I feel like there's some significance there with that I'd like to revisit.
Yeah, and one line that made me smile, just to read this out loud. A mechanical engineer, this is talking about Hopkins, a mechanical engineer of universal genius, an American, of course, whose inventions seem to fall from the heavens directly into his lap. I was like, what is that? That's funny now. It must have been funny then for totally different reasons. What a cool joke. So do you want to read us as a tease for tomorrow? Do you want to read us the first story of this ghost story?
Yeah, the first sentence here is, and I don't know because the first sentence is like very slow, but you know what? I'm going to read it anyway. Everyone who has traveled over eastern England knows the smaller country houses with which it is studded. The rather dark little buildings, usually in the Italian style, surrounded with parks of some 80 to 100 acres. And then he goes on and on and on about, I should like to live in one of these houses.
Right.
And if I did, I would decorate it modestly so that I could invite my friends for tea. And it's like, can we talk about the witches? But I think it's very intentional. And so I'm very excited to hear your thoughts.
I can't wait.
Especially because like later on, you know, he talks about the Italian style. That becomes a factor later on in the story.
Well, that's perfect.
I'm just very excited. It's
plenty
great
to talk about tomorrow. So the name of that story, if you haven't bought The Dark Descent or checked it out at your library yet, is called The Ash Tree by M.R. James. You can probably track this one down. M.R. James, apparently, you know, as I'm coming to learn, you know, he is an OG of the ghost story. Really helped establish some of these conventions that are foundational, including, as we just heard, the sort of gothic countryside. So that is exciting. Wrapping up, if you're here for the first time, welcome. We have 3 live streams a week. Sarah and I, this is part of what we call the Speculative Fiction Circle, a community of writers, an emerging circle. We're 3 weeks into this project. On Wednesdays, we read science fiction short stories from the collection, The Big Book of Science Fiction, edited by Jeff Vandermeer. On Wednesdays, every week, one more story, a horror story from The Dark Descent, which is a thorough cumulative collection of horror short stories. Each of these collections, the editors have done a great job of providing context, and all of you have done a great job of providing insight, context. Sarah and I are jamming on these as writers and readers as well. It's been a lot of fun. So we have a Discord. It's in the respective versions of this video. We'd love to have you there also. And hopefully we'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah. All right, friends. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being you. I'm just excited to keep going.
Honor the final comments here. Takashi says that would be a great exercise, doing a story as an author in the past and compare it with a contemporary fiction. Look at the difference and see what we can learn from them. Love that.
I like that.
Love that. Cheers. Thanks. Thank you, Narrative Vault.
Yeah, thank you for being here. It's so good. So good to see you.
Great. All right, folks. We'll see you tomorrow or Friday. Take care.
All right. Bye for now.